Hi, Karlos and Jamie Harris here. And today's topic is about accreditation. Now, if you are in pursuit as of right now of building your institution, post secondary institution specifically, then there are some things that you need to know about accreditation. And my wife actually is the one that has been pursuing accreditation for our institution since 2000 and
2011.
so if I was a new entrepreneur, a new school owner, and I just had this vast amount of knowledge that I wanted to begin to share with others, uh, individuals who wanted to be like minded, what would be the first step that I would begin if I wanted to get accredited?
So, accreditation is really taking a deep dive into the functionality of your school, if I can put it that way, right? You have all these policy and procedures, you're going to be creating more as you go, and you're going to actually be following them. So, we can all do a policy and procedure manual, right? We can all do, here is the standard operating procedures of my facility, right? This is what we do every day, day in and day out. But it's one thing to actually do them, and it's another thing to actually follow them and to have everybody on board with you following them. Accreditation is something that makes your school on solid foot or on solid ground. So often we have schools or training organizations or training programs that we put up, and we do it for workforce development, or we do it for community initiatives, for socioeconomic status, right? If you want a school where you're actually doing training programs to become accredited, then you would actually have to research what accreditation company you wanted to be with. Do you want to be with a regional accreditation company, or do you want to be with a national accreditation company?
Okay, so what's the difference? What's the difference between a regional accreditation?
Well, there are many differences. There are many differences, but one of the main differences are the ability to offer degree programs, such as graduate degrees or bachelor degrees, or even medical degrees for that matter, or the ability to offer certificate of completions, diploma programs, or associate degrees. In order to do accreditation tasks quickly, I would say in no less than 4 years, you could become accredited. And that's going at rapid speed. That's assuming you have no bumps. And that's assuming that you get into a meeting initially for candidacy within a month.
Okay, so I have my registration with my state agency. I'm a proprietary school. So now the next step is to perhaps seek out what organization I want to get accredited with, right?
Right.
There has to be, is there quite a few of them?
There's so many of them. I have no idea how many, but there are tons.
Okay, and so which one did you pursue?
Well, I first started looking at the skilled trade that I was offering, right? So I know that there are differences. We were already in business. We had already had students attending for a consecutive 2 full years before we actually applied for accreditation. And so I looked at the different accreditation agencies, whether they were regional or national, and I also looked at what training programs that they actually accepted to become accredited. So there were many differences, but in short, I found Council on Occupational Education. The reason is because we were offering exactly, or our thought was to offer certificate of completions, diploma programs, as well as associate degree programs in the future. And I didn't want to become regional because I wanted to eventually branch our campuses to different states. And I also didn't want to become regional because I wasn't in the university business. I wanted to make a faster means to a career and training education for gainful employment.
Okay, so once I am into whichever accreditation organization that I want to be a part, what would be my next step?
Then you're doing some research, you're doing some digging, right? So you want to make sure that the accreditation company will, number one, take you. Number two, that you can get a hold of them. I know that there's a laundry list of things that go into the planning of a school to become accredited, but the first and foremost thing that you have to do is get accepted into a candidacy meeting.
Okay. So just for all those that may be considering doing accreditation, how long on a typical in a typical situation or scenario, how long would it take for an organization to get accredited?
All right, so let's go through the timeline of things. You have to first get accepted into a candidacy meeting. Once you get accepted into a candidacy meeting, it could be 6 months before you actually attend the meeting. And then from that point on, you go back home and you have a laundry list of things you have to do. You have to create a self-study, you have to create your application, and you have to submit your application. Okay. Once you submit your application, then you're actually going to have a candidacy visit scheduled. You can't go any sooner than 6 months from the date that you actually submitted your application. You have 6 months to 18 months actually. So from the time you submit that application, they receive it and stamp it at their office. That's when the time starts clicking. So from that point, you have 6 months to 18 months to actually have your candidacy visit. They can come in, they send a team of people to come in and review all of your folders that you have done, all of your standards that they told you to prepare, and just a little bit of, you haven't really done your self-study yet, but you've started preparing for things like that. So if they approve you, then things could go a little bit rapid or a little bit quicker than normal, but you could be deferred.
Okay.
So it just depends whether they approve you or not.
So recently, I know that the Veterans Affairs Administration, they began specifying that organizations had to be accredited, right? So how, on the grand scheme of things, how is that going to affect moving forward these organizations who weren't?
Oh, well, it affects them greatly. So, if you're a school owner and you have different funding sources for your students, veterans are a big portion of that. Think about how many veterans that we have in our communities that we serve in our geographical regions. Speaking from a standpoint of whether you have traditional on-campus classes, then the number goes up even higher if you have online courses. And veterans make up a huge portion of that because they have veteran benefits that they get, such as GI Bill. There's different chapters that they can use. There's also a few different programs like Vet Tech and VRAP now for veterans. But educational benefits are very much when the veteran's transitioning home, that's what they use to actually attend school or to attend a training program.
If there was one thing that you could tell a potential school owner that's in the beginning stages of trying to figure out how they're going to do their accreditation, what would that be?
Well, it would be, number one, make sure that you have the funding and the resources. So you said the scenario you gave me earlier was that we already owned a school. So I'm talking to school owners right now. So they're already in very much in the thick of it. They already have curriculum built. They already know about the instructors that they have to hire. They already have a good foothold probably on the budget that it takes to run their existing school at this point. But what they don't understand is that accreditation has so many more financial obligations that they're going to encounter along the way of becoming accredited. So I would say, number one, make sure that your bank account is very robust going into this because accreditation is going to cost you a lot of money. That's number one. Number two is make sure that you have a solid plan. Just because you're a school owner right now and just because you're running a school and it looks like it's functioning and operating does not mean that you know how to run an accredited school. Accreditation is a whole nother level of policy and procedures and compliance that no one would ever anticipate. So number two is make sure you do your research, whether that be going to meet with other school owners and gaining the knowledge of what it actually takes to become accredited, but making sure that you have a good foothold or a good foundation and you know the building blocks that are going to come along with that. So that means a strategic plan, right? That means a good business plan, a good solid one. And number three would be making sure that you have the staff to actually help you because accreditation is not just a one-man show. And if it is one-man show, then they're going to know it. So chances are likely you're going to be deferred from accreditation. You need a team of people that are actually going to be helping you in building your standards. Last but not least, the most important thing above and beyond anything is once you are building this, I like to say this masterpiece because there are so many moving pieces within your school or your organization. You really don't take the time as a business owner or as a school director to understand what goes into actually getting students in seats. And so I think that, it's one thing to build your campus and you have all these great, glorious procedures and your instructors are well trained and your curriculum is well designed. But then it comes down to actually having students, because if you don't have enough cash flow, and I hate to pull out the cash card, but it all depends on what you're selling, right? At the end of the day, even though we're in the business of education and training, you still have to have revenue. You still have to have a return on investment, and you have to make sure that you know how to get students in the seat. And without a digital marketer or without online media or social media presence, then you really are doing yourself a disservice or an injustice, because you're not going to be able to actually run your business anymore.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for this edition of the Campus Builders. But the one and the greatest thing for you to take away from this is that accreditation is a process, and it's a long, drawn, exclusive process for those that, for the most part, are well funded and have a lot of time to invest into it. So that'll do it for us for right now. Jamie, Carlos, and hopefully you guys got something out of this. Tune in every day. We're going to give you some information, education, and definitely some inspiration. If you like and are pursuing building that institution, then this is definitely the place you want to be. So until we speak to you again, we'll see you on the other side.